Hey everybody, Karyn Bryant here talking with Natan Levy, who is facing Pete Rodriguez at UFC Charlotte. Your fourth UFC fight, is that right? So how you feeling in preparation for this one?
I'm feeling really good. We were supposed to fight 2 weeks ago, so I was already in shape. I was ready to go. I was good to make the weight. So this just gave me a couple more weeks to prepare, um, get in even better shape, and that's it. Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to go.
So did that bother you at all, getting it moved? Because he was basically sick, right, or something. It wasn't a major thing, right? It's just that he was sick.
Yeah, allegedly he was sick. Um, I don't know if he could make the weight or not,
Yeah.
and like it doesn't it doesn't bother me that much because I get to fight in front of a crowd, which is great. I did, however, lose my grandfather last week,
Um,
and I could not make it to the funeral, and I couldn't be there with my family, so this bothers me a lot. Yeah,
well, I'm very sorry to hear that.
thank you.
I'm very sorry to hear that. And I'm curious too because, actually, Natan, I just the other day I spoke with Cody Stamen about this, and he fought really soon after his brother had passed away. Different relationship, obviously,
Yeah,
but he won, and then he kept going, and things didn't go so well for him because he didn't take the time to process the grief and the loss. So, are you planning to kind of go through this fight and then maybe go home and see your family?
yes, that's the plan. Win this fight on Saturday, and then go home and be with my family. Um, can compare to losing your brother. Thankfully, my grandfather, he had a long life, a good life, and we lost him, but it is what it is. It's not it like can compare it to a brother,
Yeah, yeah, but it's
but I will
still,
grieve, of course.
yeah, you have a heavy heart. It's something, but in a way too, you can sometimes you can use that as fuel, right? And to take something in there with you in the octagon and kind of give you something to fight for even more, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And my grandfather, he was a tough guy, and he fought, to make it to Israel, and I'll fight in his honor, and win or lose, I'll fight for him.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's great. And I want to talk about a few things. So the last fight you had at the Apex, I remember coming out, because sometimes I'm just hanging in the back, and then sometimes we come out and sit around the octagon. And for yours, I was like, oh, I got to go see this. I want to be there for that. I think you have a really bright future, and there's already a lot of buzz on you. But that was a fight where you had to dig. Like, you were doing really well at first, then you faced some adversity, and you had to dig deep to get that win. So, did you learn something about yourself in that fight? Because I feel like that was one that maybe can help you propel you moving forward. Like, hey, wow, I just learned I can really come through the storm and make it out.
Yeah, we always prepare for the dogfight. Obviously, I much rather outstrike somebody or outgrapple them totally and win in dominant fashion, but I always get ready for the hardest fights. The UFC is putting, tough individuals in front of me, but that's the the minimum requirement for this sport is to be tough. So everybody's tough. I happen to fight the toughest,
Yeah.
but truly I am the toughest. And every time they were telling me, "Oh, this guy is going to be very tough," um, be ready for a tough fight. Be ready. This guy is going to keep coming. Every time I was the tougher man. I was the one that kept coming. Even if it wasn't easy, but I did never came into, to have an easy time. So again, with Pete, same thing. I'm excited. I know he's going to be tough. I know he can take shots, but I can take shots too. I'm very tough. I'm skilled too, and more skilled than my few former opponents and this one. So I feel that's really the what makes a big difference.
And also, I having a crowd now too. I was just thinking, like, if you had had that other fight in front of a crowd too, like, everybody would have been going insane. I mean, they were in the Apex anyway, but like, I was just thinking what a crowd would have been doing for that fight. So that's got to feel extra good knowing you have that kind of to help support you as well.
Yeah, crowd is a different energy, and it really pushes you forward. And even in hard times, you gotta dig deep, like you said. But it's more fun to do it in front of a crowd and have those big, sounds from the crowd. So it's an amazing experience. I'm really looking forward to it on Saturday.
I'm excited for you. And so there's Did you find it hard to translate your background into MMA? You know, like just yesterday I was talking to Jairzinho, who's the main event, you know, and he was a kickboxer. So the wrestling part was really hard for him. So if you started in karate, like what has been the most challenging part for you to learn in terms of rounding out your skill set?
When I first came to Vegas, I was 22 years old. I didn't know anything, armbar, guard. I had a kind of an idea how you do it, but
Yeah.
nothing really, other than watching TV. So with Coach Giff, I had to learn so much, but I also had to unlearn some stuff. Um, and I think it was really about being committed to learning the craft, to learn boxing and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and completely, at first I had this thought like, oh, I'm going to represent karate and MMA. But with time, I realized I just got to be the best fighter that I can be. And through that, the karate actually started to shine through. So when you have better boxing, when you have better wrestling, then you're not as scared of kicking. You develop as an athlete. Suddenly, again, the karate, like you got to have the fundamentals, you got to have the basics. Most fighters in the UFC don't know karate and they're doing just fine. But if you know something, extra that nobody knows, that gives you a little bit of an edge. So I got to know what everybody knows, and then I know my stuff.
I love it. Well, that's a great little edge to have. And for people who don't know, you you're somebody who's lived around the world, and you talk about going to Las Vegas where your home base is now, but yeah, you are Israeli but born in Paris initially, right? So and
Yes.
then trained in Japan. Like how many soils have you touched here, Natan? Like I love it. I think it's great, a great way to like round out your training. But yeah, like where are you from?
Yeah, I was born in Paris, but at 2 months old, we moved to Israel.
Yeah.
So speaking French only at home. And other than that, I remember myself fully as Israeli, always have been.
Yep.
Um, and yet, age 16, 15, I started doing karate and training pretty seriously. And, my coach told me he's going to Japan to train with the masters. And I asked them if I can join. He said, yeah, sure. I came to my mom at the house. I said, hey, mom, can I go into Japan with my coach? She was cooking or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, honey, of course you can.
I just
Little did she know I was going to buy a plane ticket that week and tell her, like, hey, you already said
yeah.
it's cool. So I'm going. And, spent some months there, had some difficult times as well, but
Yeah.
that built me and made me stronger. And since then, kept on, like, martial arts has been my life, my journey. I was teaching. I had a few successful gyms. I was doing really good, but I would wake up at 5 a.m. to watch UFC in Israel time. It wasn't
Yeah.
every Saturday. Back then, it was one event a month, I think, only pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And, I started to have that fire in me. I really wanted to do it, but I thought it wasn't for me. I thought I was on a different path until I said, F it, closed down my schools, bought a plane ticket to Vegas. And I didn't know anybody, but luckily I met Coach Giff, who's been guiding me ever since for the past 10 years.
I love it. Oh, and it's such an incredible thing, and when the willingness you have to uproot yourself and go and train in another country and move when you don't speak the language and all that is really incredible. And I think it does teach you a lot about yourself, and it teaches you how to be mentally tough too. We were just telling that whole story with Song Yadong, same thing, like moving from China to north of California, like no support, and look at the great things he's doing. But one thing I am curious about is when we see Israeli fighter, the assumption is Krav Maga, right? The assumption is, all of that kind of a certain Israeli fighting style. So why is it that you were drawn to karate as opposed to doing Krav Maga?
I did do a little bit of Krav Maga growing up, but I did a bunch of things, but it never stick. Like I just would give up easy, or I would get bored, or just not being mature enough. And at the right time, the right thing caught me, and especially I think in karate, like I was gonna say, I used the kicks maybe, or maybe I used some footworks, but what really goes with me always is like the mindset, the way of life, the Budo way of like the warrior and stuff that I learned in Japan. So for me and you, Japan is exotic. For somebody else, Krav Maga is exotic. When you're in Israel, you're not very excited to do Krav Maga. I did some, but it doesn't sound as cool.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, so I have spoken with, in the past, Aviv Gozali, who fights over in Bellator. I don't know if you know him, but it is a big deal to be an Israeli fighter, right? And are you currently the only one in the UFC?
No, there is also Yana Lashmoz, who
Right.
is fighting in the UFC at this great knockout at UFC London.
Okay, right. But we were talking about what that means and the representation and how important that is for you. And do you see so many like the Georgian fighters, and I feel like everybody's got their national pride, but especially it feels like not only is it just a little bit different because there are fewer of you, but also because I feel like Israel is a misunderstood place, right? So do you feel that a certain pressure, or not pressure, but a certain sense of identity when you're walking in the octagon as an Israeli fighter?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. Like I said, my grandparents, they had to flee the Middle East to go to Israel. Uh, my wife's grandparents had to flee Europe to go to Israel. So this is for us the safest place in the world. And, we appreciate it. And maybe in a few generations, it's going to go down. Hopefully by then it's going to be more peaceful, of
Yeah.
course. But right now we know very clearly that this is the best place for us on earth. And, again, our grandparents really fled for their lives to make it, those who did make it.
Yep.
Um,
Well, I've been meaning to go because my friend, like, I have friends that have gone and absolutely raved about it. And I want to say, Natan, how can I say this in a way? Do you have a brother? I find Israeli people quite handsome, if I'm just being straight up honest with you. And so a friend of mine was like, we need to go and like go and let's just say, enjoy some of the local scenery. You know what I mean? But if I were to go to Israel, where's the best place for me to go to meet people?
Tel Aviv for sure.
Okay.
And of course, you got to see Jerusalem. You got to see Elad, the north. It's
Yes.
beautiful. It's hot and a little bit humid,
Yeah.
but sure you can handle
It's
it
okay. I
and
can
have
handle it.
fun.
Like I'm half Jamaican. The heat, the humidity, that pit. Like I'm made for that. Like that doesn't bother me at
Hmm.
all. But I'm not even half kidding. Like I have heard so many things about it being a beautiful place and that the people were just so kind and like I've had nothing but great recommendations about going there. So I do want to do it someday. But so yeah, with it being your fourth fight. You're in a tough division. What are your plans? Have you mapped out future fights? Because when we stick the mic in your face after a win, we like it if you have a name. Instead of just I'll take anybody. Have you thought about who you would want next?
Honestly, not so much.
Okay.
I'd like to fight a lot of people, but I feel like at this point in my career, like I don't think the UFC is gonna budge too much about who I'm calling out.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I'll try to be ready when the mic hits me.
Yeah.
But right now, I've been so focused on Pete that that's the biggest thing and pretty much it.
Okay, that makes sense. That's fair. I'll give you that's fair. That's fair. Because you are in really tough division, and there's just a lot of people there. There's a lot.
I'd really like to rematch Rafa Garcia, my first and only loss. I don't know if the UFC has interest in it. That's the fight I really want right now. I know I was very close to winning it. I
Yeah.
made some bad decisions, and I wanna maybe someday I would love to get this one back.
Okay, well that makes sense. And it's interesting too with when you are undefeated. Sometimes it's the upside downside thing, right? Like obviously it's nice to be undefeated, but sometimes it's a burden carrying that around. And maybe one day it's going to go. So was there any sense of relief in just getting it out of the way, if you understand what I mean?
I understand, but no, I feel like it's a much bigger burden to have that one on my record.
Okay, all right, I got you. I got you.
It pisses me off every time I see it.
Okay.
Especially when I think the fight was very winnable. And
Yeah.
props to him. He did what he needed to do, but I feel like I wasn't in the best place to fight. As far as strategy and camp stuff, like I was in great shape. I was ready mentally, but I just feel like I didn't have the answers because they weren't there. Like he did some stuff that I haven't drilled defense for way too long. How did this happen? Um, but yeah, again, props to him.
Yeah, I mean, look, it that's the thing. Fight IQ, fight. The more Octagon experience you have, the more you're going to recognize those situations and have answers for it. So it's just a learning experience. You can't be too hard on yourself for you haven't had that many fights yet. You know what I mean in the UFC. So
Yeah, hopefully we keep winning. We keep that one for a little bit longer. Even when I was undefeated before every fight, I know I'm gonna lose one day. Someday
yeah.
I'm gonna lose, but not today.
Okay. All right, I like that. I like that. All right. Well, so last question. Now that it's Wednesday, it's almost weight cut time. Do you sort of see the weight cut as the last hurdle to get over, or is the weight cut when you sort of click into fight mode?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people like to say, weight cut over, fun time now. I'm not here to have fun. I'm here to win. The job is over when I have my hand raised. Until then, it's fight mode, focus. Um, what's right for me to win this fight? That's all the decisions that I make.
Okay. Well, I just lost this. Well, that's a good plan. That sounds good. Um, I don't envy you for the weight cut. You seem pretty fit. You don't seem like you walk around with a ton of extra body fat though. So I feel like
I need to lose some muscle to make the weight, but it's all right.
yeah. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Because you're big, yeah. It's yeah. It doesn't seem like body fat, but it does seem like yeah. You're not small for the division, obviously. So yeah, yeah. Well, okay. I appreciate you taking the time today, and I know you got a lot going on. Thank you for the travel tourism tips about going to Israel. I'm going to take you up on it. I mean, obviously, I need to go to the wall. I got to say some prayers and all of that, but I really do hope to go someday. I keep asking my friend who's going. I'm like, "Are you going again?" Because I think Aviv was going to fight or something. They were going to have another show over there soon, and I was like, "I'm going with you this time." So. I really do hope to make it. But yeah, wishing you the best of luck in Charlotte. Enjoy that crowd, enjoy all of it, and just best of luck to you in the future.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Good talking to you.